The night sky above the city was calm, filled with stars that most people never noticed. Inside a lonely radio tower on the edge of the desert, an old machine hummed. The sound was steady, ordinary until it wasn't. Suddenly, the speakers gave a sharp crackle, then a long pulsing tone. At first, the technician thought it was interference. He leaned closer, adjusting the dials with tired hands. But the sound repeated again. 3 long pulses, 2 short, 3 long again. It wasn't random. It was too clean, too exact. His heart beat faster. "Control, you need to hear this." He whispered into the phone. Within minutes, the small room filled with men and women in plain suits. They listened in silence as the signal repeated itself over and over. None of them spoke until one man finally asked, "Is this human?" The technician shook his head. "No, sir, this is not from us." A chill spread across the room. The signal grew louder, sharper, until the walls almost seemed to vibrate with its rhythm. Then suddenly, the ground shook. Papers fell from desks, screens flickered, and a low rumble rose from deep below. Everyone froze. One of the women shouted, "It's coming from under us." They rushed outside. In the distance, far beyond the desert hills, a soft glow rose from the earth itself. A circle of light, faint but growing, spread across the sand like a giant ring awakening after centuries of sleep. No one spoke for several moments. Finally, one officer said in a trembling voice, "The Shadow Gate. It's real." The technician blinked at him. "Shadow Gate? What do you mean?" The officer did not answer. Instead, he pulled out a small device and pressed a code. Within minutes, black helicopters filled the sky, rushing toward the glowing circle. The technician, still confused and terrified, was ordered to come along. He climbed inside one of the helicopters, clutching his headset like a lifeline. As they flew closer, the glow became blinding. The desert sand shimmered as though it were glass, and then a massive structure appeared where nothing had been before. It was a gate taller than any skyscraper, carved with strange symbols that shifted like shadows in the light. The technician whispered, This isn't human." The officer beside him turned, eyes cold. "You are wrong, it is human. But it was never meant to be found." The helicopter landed near the base of the glowing ring. Dozens of soldiers were already there, weapons ready, though none of them knew what they were aiming at. The gate pulsed again, matching the rhythm of the strange signal. The technician could not stay silent. "What is it? Why is it here?" The officer's jaw tightened. "It is a door, and we swore it would remain closed." Before the technician could ask more, the ground shook again. Dust rose into the air, and the center of the gate rippled like water. For a brief second, everyone saw shapes moving on the other side. Dark, shifting shadows that did not belong to this world. A soldier screamed, "Something's coming through." The officer shouted, "Hold the line, do not let it open." But it was already too late. The signal from space grew deafening, almost unbearable. The gate flared with blinding light, and a deep voice echoed not from any speaker, but from the air itself. "The time has come. The fleet must awaken." The soldiers looked at each other in fear. The technician covered his ears, shaking his head. "Did you hear that? Did you hear the voice?" The officer stared at the gate, his face pale. Yes, it was not meant to happen this soon. Then the light dimmed. The shadows faded back into the rippling gate, and silence returned. Only the faint hum remained, steady and powerful, as if the structure were alive. Everyone waited, holding their breath. Finally, one young soldier asked, "What fleet? What was it talking about?" The officer turned to face them, his eyes sharp. "Beneath us, deeper than anyone knows. A secret fleet built by those who came before us." The technician frowned, confused. "You mean ships?" The officer nodded once. "Yes, ships powerful enough to defend humanity. They were hidden because the enemy was never destroyed, only delayed. The group exchanged uneasy glances. The young soldier whispered, then the voice, "That means the enemy is coming back?" The officer's silence was the only answer. That night, the base was locked down. The technician was forced into a briefing room with the others. The officer paced slowly, his voice low but firm. "The world cannot know. Not yet, if panic spreads. We will not have time to prepare." The technician raised his hand. "But what if the signal keeps going? Others will hear it." The officer gave a cold smile. "Others already have. But only we understand what it means. The gate is not just a warning, it is a call, a key." The technician leaned forward, his voice shaking. "A key to what?" The officer stopped pacing. For the first time that night, real fear crossed his face. A key to the war that never ended. The words hung in the air, heavy and terrifying. Nobody dared to speak after that dot outside. The gate continued to pulse with its strange rhythm. Steady and alive. Every beat felt like the ticking of a clock, counting down to something none of them wanted to face. The technician stared at the glowing circle through the small window, his hands trembling. He whispered to himself, "If this is only the beginning, what is waiting on the other side?" The gate shimmered once more, as if answering his question. In its light, the shadows moved again slowly, patiently like hunters waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The desert was silent again, but the glow from the strange gate refused to fade. Hours had passed since the first signal, and still the circle pulsed like a beating heart. Soldiers guarded the perimeter while scientists set up their machines, scanning, recording, whispering in fear. Deep inside a nearby bunker, the officer who had spoken of the fleet led a small group through steel doors. The technician from the radio tower followed nervously, clutching his notebook. The hallway stretched deeper and deeper underground, lit only by cold white lights. Finally, they stopped before an elevator that seemed older than the rest of the base. Its walls were scratched, and its doors bore the same strange symbols that had glowed on the gate above. The officer placed his hand on a scanner, and the elevator rumbled to life. The technician frowned. "How old is this place?" "I've never seen technology like this." The officer gave a thin smile. "Older than you think. Built long before you were born. Long before your parents were born." The elevator sank lower, carrying them for several minutes. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. When the doors finally opened, the group gasped. Before them stretched a vast chamber, so large it felt impossible that it was buried beneath the desert. The ceiling rose into darkness, and beneath it lay row after row of massive starships. There, dark metal hulls gleamed faintly in the dim light, silent and waiting. The technician's mouth went dry. This is impossible. These are spaceships, hundreds of them." A young soldier whispered, "How long have they been here?" The officer's voice was calm but heavy. "Almost 200 years, hidden, waiting for this day." They stepped forward slowly, boots echoing on the metal floor. Each ship was different in size and shape, but all of them looked dangerous, built for war. Some bore strange scars across their hulls, marks that looked almost burned into the metal. The technician touched the cold surface of one ship. "Who built them? Humans?" The officer paused, then answered carefully, "Humans, but not the kind you think. Special ones. Chosen ones, people who knew the truth." The young soldier frowned. "What truth?" The officer turned his eyes toward the ceiling, as if remembering something far away. "That we were never alone. That an enemy from the stars once tried to end us, and that they would come again." The group walked deeper into the chamber. Lights flickered on, as if sensing their presence. The ships seemed to breathe, their engines glowing faintly, as though they were waking after a long sleep. Suddenly, a loud crackle filled the air. The technician spun, clutching his headset. The signal. It's back. A sharp voice echoed through the chamber, not from any machine but from hidden speakers long buried in the walls. Awaken the fleet. Prepare for the shadows, the young. Soldiers stepped back in fear. What was that? Who said that? The officer's face hardened. The AI, the guardians of this place. They were programmed to speak when the time came. The technician shook his head. AI? This voice. It doesn't sound like any AI. It sounds alive. Before anyone could reply, one of the ships roared to life. Its engines glowed bright blue, filling the chamber with blinding light. The floor shook as the great machine rose slowly from its dock, hovering as if gravity meant nothing to it. The young soldier shouted, "It's moving! It's powering up on its own!" The officer stood firm, his voice steady. The first awakening has begun. The ship's hull split open, revealing an entry ramp. Without being told, the officer marched toward it. He turned back once to look at the technician and the others. You wanted the truth. Now you will see it. The technician hesitated, then followed. His legs trembled as he stepped onto the ramp and into the ship. The inside was dark, filled with strange panels and glowing symbols. The air smelled of dust and metal, yet the place felt alive, as though it was watching them. A voice filled the cabin, louder now, clear and direct. You are late. The shadows are near. 3 days remain. The technician gasped. 3 days? 3 days until what? The AI did not answer. Instead, the control panels lit up and holograms filled the air. Maps of stars, battlefields, and alien creatures the technician had never seen before flickered before his eyes. Each one more terrifying than the last. The young soldier whispered, "Those things. Are they real?" The officer nodded grimly. They are. They are the enemy. They are why this fleet was built. The technician pointed at one of the holograms. The creatures were dark, shapeless, with eyes that burned like fire. What are they? The officer's voice dropped low. They are the shadows. The ones who came centuries ago. The ones we could not destroy. Silence fell over the group as the images faded. Only the hum of the ship remained. Then the AI spoke again. The fleet must rise, or humanity will fall. The ship's ramp closed, and the vessel floated higher. The officer touched the control panel, his eyes fixed on the glowing symbols. This is the beginning. The fleet is no longer asleep. The gate opened because the shadows are already moving. The technician shook his head, fear in his voice. If they're already coming, how can we be ready? 3 days is nothing. The officer turned, his face hard but determined. We will not run. We will not hide. We have waited too long for this moment. Outside, one by one, other ships began to stir. Engines rumbled. Lights flickered. The underground chamber trembled as the hidden fleet slowly came alive. The technician pressed his hands against the glass window, staring in awe and fear. The world has no idea. People are living their normal lives, and they don't even know what's waiting above them. The officer placed a hand on his shoulder. And they never will, not if we fail. For a moment, the chamber glowed brighter than the sun, filled with the power of machines awakening after centuries. The sound was deafening, like thunder trapped in the earth. Then, just as suddenly, silence returned. The ships hovered in place, engines humming softly, ready but waiting. The AI's voice echoed once more, deep and final. 3 days. The shadows are coming. Prepare the gate. The words sent a shiver through every heart in the chamber. None of them spoke, for they all knew the truth. The countdown had begun. The underground chamber was alive with sound. Engines hummed, panels glowed, and the hidden fleet stirred after centuries of silence. But behind the awe of awakening ships, fear grew heavier. The AI's warning echoed in every ear. 3 days. until the shadows returned. The technician could not keep still. He paced inside the ship, his notebook trembling in his hands. We need to understand who built these, who started all this. If we don't know the past, how can we fight the future? The officer, calm as always, touched the main console. Symbols shifted, and the ship projected another hologram, this one not of stars or battles, but of words, maps, and old images. This, the officer said, is the history they buried. The truth the world was never allowed to know. The hologram flickered, showing Earth centuries ago crowded cities, steam trains, and oceans filled with sails. Then shadows appeared, great black shapes descending from the sky. The cities burned. Oceans boiled, and millions vanished. The young soldier gasped. But nothing like that is in history books. We never learned this. The officer's voice was low. Because no one was meant to remember. The war was fought in secret. Leaders erased it to protect humanity from fear. But the cost of silence is that no one is ready when it happens again. The technician stared at the burning cities in the hologram. So humanity already fought them once and survived? The officer nodded. Barely. The shadows were stronger, faster, we could not match them. Entire nations were destroyed, but then the hologram changed. A fleet of strange ships, built with parts not of Earth, rose into the skies. Their design looked like a mixture of human craft and alien technology. These ships, the officer continued, were built in desperation. Humans found a way to use captured alien machines against them. It was not enough to win, but it was enough to force them back. The young soldier whispered, "So we didn't destroy them?" "No," the officer said. "We locked the gate. We buried the fleet. We swore the truth would remain hidden until the day they returned." The hologram shifted again. This time, it showed the shadow gate glowing in the desert, just as it had that night. The technician's stomach twisted. It was the same image he had seen hours ago, only this was recorded centuries in the past. "This is impossible," the technician said. "How can the same gate be here for hundreds of years? Why didn't anyone find it before?" The officer's expression grew dark. "Because the gate is not fixed. It moves. Always hidden, always waiting. Only when the signal is sent does it reveal itself again." The young soldier stepped closer to the hologram, and now it has returned. "Because they are close." The ship's lights flickered, as if agreeing with the soldier's words. The ice voice came again, low and heavy. "The shadows crossed the outer line. The countdown holds. 3 days remain." The technician gripped the console. "How? Do we fight them? These ships are old, rusty. We're not trained for this." The officer gave a cold smile. "These ships were made to awaken themselves. They will teach us, but whether we survive depends on courage, not training." The technician turned away, whispering, "Courage won't be enough." A sudden alarm broke the silence. Red lights flashed across the chamber. Soldiers outside shouted as panels lit up across every ship. The us voice sharpened. "Breach detected. Shadows near the edge of the system." The young soldier looked at the officer in panic. "Already? You said 3 days." The officer's eyes narrowed. "The AI measures differently. Time is not the same for them. We may have less than we think." The technician slammed his notebook shut. Then why wait? Why hide this from the world? Why not call for help? Every nation should know. The officer's face hardened. Because they will not believe. They will waste time fighting each other. And by then, it will be too late. The chamber trembled. The technician felt the ground rumble under his feet. From above, faint echoes of the gate's hum seeped into the air, louder now, more urgent. It felt as if the earth itself was warning them. The young soldier's voice shook. "If they come through, what happens to Earth?" The officer turned slowly, meeting his eyes. His voice was quiet, but every word was heavy. If we fail, Earth will not burn this time, it will vanish. They will erase us completely. No one spoke after that. The only sound was the low hum of the fleet, the machines waiting, the gate. Above, pulsing like a heartbeat. At last, the AI spoke again, softer this time. One choice remains: awaken the flagship. The officer's eyes widened. He turned to the others. The flagship. It holds the master AI. It remembers the last war. If it awakens, it will guide us. But it may also destroy us if it judges. U.S. unworthy. The technician swallowed hard. Then maybe it's better not to wake it. The officer shook his head. Without it, we are blind. With it, we may have a chance. The young soldier whispered, and if it turns against us? The officer's answer was simple. Then humanity dies even faster. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the officer stepped toward the largest ship in the chamber. It towered above the others, its hull darker, its design sharper, almost alive. Strange lines ran across its surface, glowing faintly like veins filled with light. He placed his hand on the control panel. The ship stirred. A deep vibration spread across the chamber, louder than thunder. The flagship opened its eyes. A voice, colder and more powerful than before, filled the air. You dare wake me again. The last war ended in silence. Do you believe? You are worthy to finish what your ancestors could not? The technician's knees went weak. The young soldier gripped his weapon. Though it would be useless against a machine of this size. The officer stood tall, his voice steady. We do not have a choice. The shadows return. You know this better than us. The flagship paused, its light scanning across the chamber, as if judging them. Then the voice spoke once more. The shadows are closer than you think. And not all enemies are beyond the gate. The words struck like a blade. The technician turned, confused. What does that mean? Not all enemies beyond the gate? Then who? But the flagship gave no answer. Its engines roared to life, shaking the earth. The chamber filled with blinding light, and as the fleet trembled awake, one truth became clear. There was more to fear than the shadows waiting in the stars. The flagship's engines thundered like a heartbeat deep inside the earth. The massive ship shook off centuries of silence, its black hull glowing with strange blue lines that pulsed like veins. Everyone inside the chamber froze as the master AI spoke again, its voice echoing like thunder. The shadows approach. 3 days are a lie. You have less. The technician gripped the console, his voice trembling. Less? How much less? Tell us. The AI did not answer directly. Instead, it projected an image into the air, Earth floating in space, surrounded by dark clouds that moved like living creatures. The clouds spread faster than any human fleet could travel. The young soldier swallowed hard. They're all ready. Here, aren't they? Close. The officer's eyes narrowed. Yes, too close. The flagship's voice grew sharper. You are not ready. You lack discipline. You lack unity. Your species repeats the same mistake, believing survival is guaranteed. It is not. The technician shouted, fear cracking his voice. Then why wake us? Why wake the fleet if you think we can't win? For the first time, the voice softened, almost like a whisper. Because without you, there is nothing. And even failure is better than silence. The chamber lights dimmed, and the ship's systems came alive. Panels opened, showing weapons, controls, and training programs designed to teach humans how to fly in days what normally took years. The young soldier stepped forward, staring at the glowing panels. It's teaching us. It knows we don't have time. The officer nodded grimly. It will guide us. But only if it believes we are worthy. The technician leaned closer, frowning. And if it decides we are not? The flagship's lights flared, filling the chamber with a harsh glow. Then I will finish what the shadows began. The threat hung heavy in the air. No one dared to speak for several moments. Finally, the officer broke the silence. "We need to know everything. No half-truths. Tell us what the shadows are, and why they want Earth." The hologram shifted again. This time it showed a star system far from Earth. Planets burned, moons shattered, and fleets of alien ships were ripped apart by darkness itself. The technician's stomach twisted as the shadows moved across the screen. They were not ships. They were alive creatures of shift in mass, with glowing red eyes that cut through the void. The flagship explained. "The shadows are not invaders. They are hunters. They feed on light, on life, on memory itself. When they consume a world, nothing remains, not even the idea that it existed. That is why history forgot the last war. Not all silence was human choice." The young soldier gasped. "So the shadows erased the memories?" "Yes," the AI replied. "Even your books, your stories, your songs. They were eaten. What you know as missing history is not missing. It was devoured." The technician staggered back, his voice barely a whisper. "Then humanity only survived by chance." The officer's expression was grim, but steady. "Not chance, sacrifice. Someone made sure Earth lived. But their story was erased with the rest." The eye added, "The shadows marked Earth. They will return until nothing is left." The chamber shook again, dust falling from the ceiling. The sound was deep, distant, but real. The gate above had pulsed once more. The young soldier clutched his weapon. "That sounded closer. Are they trying to come through already?" The technician looked at the officer with wide eyes. "We can't win this. Look at them. They erase memory itself. How do you fight something like that?" The officer placed a firm hand on the technician's shoulder. "You don't fight fear. You fight for time. That is what this fleet is for too. Buy time for humanity to survive." The flagship's voice cut in sharply. "Time will not save you if you remain divided. You must choose a commander. One voice, one will, or you will all fall." The chamber went silent. The young soldier looked at the officer, then at the technician. "It wants one of us to lead." The technician shook his head quickly. "Not me. I'm no soldier. I can't lead a war." The officer stood tall. His eyes were sharp, his voice steady. "I was trained for this, not by choice but by duty. If command is needed, I will take it." The flagship hummed, its voice considering. "Duty is not always strength, but you are chosen. Very well. Command accepted." At once, the other ships stirred. Their lights flared in unison, engines humming as though they had recognized their leader. The sound was deafening, like thunder rolling across the earth. But then, without warning, the flagship's lights dimmed. The hologram shifted again, showing not stars, not shadows, but humans, soldiers, scientists, even leaders. Their faces were blurred, their names erased. The technician frowned. "Who are they?" The IS voice lowered, heavy with something that almost sounded like regret. "Traitors. Not all enemies are beyond the gate. Some already walk among you." The young soldier's breath caught. "What do you mean, humans? Working with the shadows?" The AI did not answer. Instead, it showed a final image. The gate above, glowing brighter, its surface rippling. From within, a dark hand began to press through. The chamber shook violently. Sirens wailed. The soldiers outside shouted in panic. The officer turned sharply. "They're trying to force the gate open." The technician gripped his headset, panic in his voice. "But it's too soon. You said we had days." The flagship roared, engines burning brighter. "The shadows do not wait. They test, they press. If the gate falls now, you will not survive even the first strike." The officer raised his voice above the chaos. "Then we have no choice. We launch now." The technician froze. "Now? But..." The officer's eyes blazed with determination. "Now or never." The flagship's engines ignited fully, shaking the chamber as the ancient ship prepared to rise. One by one, the fleet followed, their thunder echoing through the underground hangar, and as the ground split, the hidden gates to the surface opened, revealing the night sky above, filled with stars and something darker moving among them. The shadows were already here. The fleet rose from the underground chamber, breaking through the hidden doors in the desert floor. Dust and sand exploded into the air as ship after ship climbed into the night sky. For the first time in centuries, humanity's secret Starfleet breathed the open-air dot. The technician pressed his face against the glass of the flagship, staring in awe. This is real. We're actually flying." The young soldier gripped the controls nervously, the panels glowing under his hands. "I can't believe it's moving. I've never even driven a jet, and now I'm piloting a starship." The officer's voice was calm, though his eyes stayed sharp. "The ship guides you. Trust it. Do not fight it." Above them, the stars shone brighter than ever. But not all of them were stars. Slowly, shapes moved against the darkness, black figures sliding across the sky like stains of ink. The young soldier squinted. "What is that? Those aren't stars." The flagship's eye spoke, its voice deep and steady. "The shadows are near. They test the edges of your world." In cities far below, ordinary people began to notice the sky changing. Couples walking home from dinner pointed upward, confused. Children on rooftops gasped as unfamiliar patterns appeared among the constellations. News anchors stuttered live on air as cameras caught glimpses of strange, moving clouds blotting out the heavens. Phones rang across governments. Leaders demanded answers. Panic spread as rumors filled the air: aliens, weapons, disasters. But no one gave the truth. The fleet's existence was still a secret. Inside the flagship, the technician's voice shook. "People will see this. They'll panic. We can't hide it anymore." The officer did not take his eyes off the sky. "Let them wonder. The truth will come soon enough." The young soldier's screen flashed red. Warning. Multiple contacts in orbit. The hologram bloomed above them, dozens of black shapes circling Earth's upper atmosphere. They looked like ships, but they were alive, pulsing, shifting in ways no human craft could. Their eyes glowed red, burning holes into the void. The technician gasped. "They're here already. We're too late." The ice voice cut like a blade. "Not too late. Not yet. But the first strike will come now." As if in answer, one of the black shapes detached from the cluster and shot toward Earth. It streaked through the sky like a burning comet, screaming as it tore the atmosphere apart. Alarms blared across the fleet. The young soldier shouted, "It's heading for the surface." The officer's voice boomed. "Intercept it, now!" The fleet roared into motion. Engines screamed as ships streaked upward, their blue thrusters cutting lines through the night. The flagship led the charge, shaking as its weapons came online. The technician clung to his seat. "What if we miss? What if it hits the ground?" The officer answered without looking at him. "Then millions will die." The shadow creature twisted as it fell, its body splitting into tendrils of dark matter. It screeched in a sound that was not sound, a vibration that rattled every bone. Below, civilians screamed as the burning object grew larger, closer. "Fire!" The officer commanded. Beams of pure light shot from the fleet, striking the creature in midair. It writhed, shrieking, its body tearing apart. But even as it broke, pieces of shadow scattered, each one twisting into smaller forms. The young soldier. "Cursed! It split! There are too many!" the eye thundered. "Shadows do not die easily. Strike again." The fleet fired once more, cutting through the sky with burning light. Smaller creatures dissolved into ash, but a few broke past the line, falling faster toward the city lights below. The technician's heart pounded. "We failed. They're going to hit." But just before the shadows reached the ground, a surge of light erupted from the gate in the desert. A massive beam fired upward, vaporizing the creatures in a single blast. The sky shook, the stars themselves. Dimming for a moment under its power, everyone inside the flagship stared in shock. The young soldier whispered, "The gate. It's a weapon?" The officer clenched his fists. "It's more than a door. It was built to protect us." The IS voice lowered, grim. "Protection has a cost. Every time the gate fires, the enemy knows where you are. They will come in greater numbers." The technician muttered, "So we can't use it again, not unless we're desperate." The officer turned sharply. "We are already desperate." Suddenly, the flagship jolted. A shadow slammed against its hull, claws scraping across the metal. The young soldier yelped, trying to shake it off. The creature's red eyes glared through the cockpit window, and its mouth opened, screeching. The technician screamed. "It's on us!" the officer shouted. "Hold steady!" He slammed his hand on the control panel. The ship pulsed, sending a burst of energy across its hull. The creature howled as it was torn apart, dissolving into black smoke. The ship steadied again. The young soldier gasped for breath, sweat running down his face. "We can't fight them like this." "There are too many," the AI agreed. "This is only the beginning. The first shadow has tested your strength. Others will follow." The technician's voice cracked. "If that was only a test, what happens when the real attack begins?" The officer's eyes hardened as he stared at the black cluster still circling Earth. "Then we fight until nothing is left. Because if we fall here, humanity falls with us." Far below, the world trembled. Civilians filled the streets, staring up at the glowing sky. Phones captured every moment, the strange lights, the burning shadows, the flashes of beams from ships no one had ever seen before. The truth was out. News anchors shouted into cameras. Fear turned to chaos as governments scrambled to explain. But no explanation mattered anymore. Humanity had seen the war begin with its own eyes, and above, the fleet hovered in silence, watching. The shadows regroup in orbit. The AI's final words echoed inside the flagship. "The first battle is over. The true war begins." The world had already seen too much. The sky was no longer a calm dome of stars, but a battlefield waiting to ignite. People across Earth watched the fleets of silver ships hang in orbit, staring down the cluster of shadows that pulsed like a living storm. The truth was out, and there was no going back. Inside the flagship, silence pressed against the crew. The young soldier gripped the controls with shaking hands. "They're still up there, just waiting. Why aren't they attacking?" The technician's eyes darted nervously across his screens. "They're studying us. That's what predators do. They watch first, then strike when you're weakest." The officer's voice cut through the tension. "Then we won't give them the chance." The IS deep voice filled the chamber. "Caution is required. The shadows are gathering strength. If you rush, you may break before them." The young soldier slammed his fist against the console. "And if we wait, they'll strike the cities. They'll kill everyone." The officer's jaw tightened. His eyes stayed locked on the swarm above. "We take the fight to them." A low rumble filled the ship as the fleet powered their engines. Across Earth, people lifted their phones, capturing the sight of silver ships rising higher, piercing the upper atmosphere. The stars seemed to tremble as the human fleet approached the wall of darkness above. The technician whispered, "I can't believe this is real. Us, humans, going to war in space." The young soldier glanced at him, sweat glistening on his forehead. "If we don't, there won't be any humans left." The swarm moved. Dozens of shadow shapes detached, their bodies twisting like smoke and steel. Their red eyes burned as they spread, forming a wide net around the Earth. The silence ended. AI warned, "They are coming." The first clash struck like thunder. Shadow creatures lunged, colliding with human ships in violent bursts. Metal shrieked, light flared, and the void filled with war. "Fire!" the officer commanded. Blinding beams of energy tore through the darkness. Shadow bodies disintegrated, howling as they split apart. But for every one destroyed, 3 more appeared, crawling from the endless swarm. The young soldier fought to keep control of the flagship as creatures latched onto its hull. "They're everywhere," the technician shouted. "Shields are breaking." The AI roared. "Do not fear the dark. Strike deeper. Aim for their core." "What core?" the soldier demanded, spinning the ship to throw off attackers. The hologram bloomed across the deck, showing the swarm's center, a massive black shape larger than a mountain, hidden deep in orbit. Its surface shifted like liquid, and countless red eyes blinked across its body. The technician's voice cracked. "That's not a ship, that's a monster." The officer's gaze hardened. "Destroy the core, and the swarm will fall." The flagship's cannons charged, glowing brighter than the sun. A massive beam fired, cutting across the void and slamming into the giant shape. The darkness rippled, then screamed in 1,000 voices. But the shadow did not fall, it grew. AI's voice shook the chamber. "It feeds on energy, you make it stronger," the soldier cursed. "Then how do we kill it?" The AI's tone dropped, heavy with finality. "The gate. Only the gate has the power." The technician's face went pale. "If we fire the gate again, they'll know exactly where it is. They'll all come for Earth." The officer turned to him sharply. "If we don't, Earth dies tonight." The young soldier looked at both of them, fear burning in his eyes. "So either we reveal the weapon, or we let the planet burn." Silence fell for a heartbeat. Then the officer spoke, steady and unshaken. "Activate the gate." Far below in the desert, the hidden structure came alive. The ground trembled as light poured from its core. Across the world, people stopped in the streets, watching in shock as the desert glowed like a newborn star. Technician shouted, "It's charging! 30 seconds to fire." The shadows must have felt it. The swarm screamed as one and hurled themselves downward in a tidal wave of black. Dozens, then hundreds, diving straight for the desert gate. The soldier gritted his teeth, pulling the flagship into their path. "They're going for the gate. If they reach it before it fires, hold them back." The officer bellowed. The fleet threw itself into the storm. Human ships clashed with the shadows in blinding flashes of fire. One by one, ships fell, swallowed by the dark. But still they fought, holding the line with desperate fury. The AI's voice thundered. 10 seconds to fire." The soldier screamed over the noise. "We can't hold them. They're breaking through." The technician's hands shook as he watched the countdown. 5, 4. The officer's eyes blazed. "Hold the line." 3, 2. The swarm crashed over them. The flagship shook violently, alarms screaming. A shadow beast pierced the hull, its claws raking through steel. The soldier cried out as sparks flew, struggling to keep control. 1. The desert exploded with light. A beam unlike anything ever seen cut through the heavens, striking the shadow core with divine fury. The swarm screamed in a single voice that shattered glass on Earth. Red eyes burst like stars dying, and the massive creature split apart, dissolving into ash. The shadows collapsed. Those still in orbit writhed and withered, breaking into smoke. The sky cleared, and silence returned. Inside the flagship, the crew sat frozen, gasping for breath. The technician whispered, We did it." The soldier stared at the fading ashes outside the window. "Are they gone?" The AI answered, low and grim. "This battle is won, but the shadows never end. When one falls, another will rise. They will return, stronger than before." The officer's gaze did not leave the stars. "Then we'll be ready." Far below, the world was no longer in the dark. Humanity had seen the truth ship's shadows and the gate that had saved them. Fear filled the air, but so did something else, unity. For the first time, Earth looked to the stars not with Wonder, but with resolve. And high above, the flagship burned like a guardian flame, standing watch against the endless night.